A few people have asked for a little bit of help on how to answer this 12-mark question. So, using examples, assess the extent to which the hydrological cycle can influence river systems at the local scale. So if we break down that question, assess obviously means to make an informed judgment. Hydrological cycle, that refers to everything from evaporation, precipitation, interception, filtration, runoff, what is stored, what flows. So it's basically an understanding of how water moves through the system, through the different transfers, the different stores. And it's then saying, well, how does that influence the river system at the local scale? And that just means an individual river. So it means talk about a river regime. So we've obviously looked at the Nile, the Yukon and the Amazon. So they're the examples that you would mention. We've also covered a couple of the UK. So I think we did the Lambourne, the Och, the River Kent, all examples that we've looked at. So with the hydrological cycle, it's basically, like I said before, looking at precipitation, evaporation, transpiration, interception, storage, infiltration. You need to consider the factors that affect them. So, for example, the climate, whether it's arid, so it's hot and dry, whether it's very, very cold, so low levels of evaporation, the amount of vegetation that you've got in the drainage basin. So, for example, the Amazon is a tropical rainforest. 75% of precipitation is caught by the trees. Only 25% actually ends up in the river. You could consider the variation that you get within the river system. So, for example, the Nile crosses something like 11 countries, a range of different climate zones. That's going to have an impact. You might even consider the impact of human disruption. So you might think that the human disruption has more of an impact than perhaps the natural processes. But the most important part is that you make a judgment on how much impact different parts of the hydrological cycle have on influencing the river. But it can be different for different rivers. So, for example, you might think that the cold climate, having low levels of evaporation and the permafrost preventing infiltration, has a huge impact on the river Yukon. Whereas you might say the dry and arid climate of the Nile has a huge impact on levels of evaporation. But obviously the Nile has the Aswan Dam written across it, built across it, along with loads of other dams. So it's not an easy question in that there's a clear answer. It's judging your ability to look at the factors that affect the river, so the factors that affect the river's discharge, and to make a judgment on how much impact they are. So I'd pick 3 variables, 1 for each paragraph. You can use one of the examples in each, so the Nile, the Amazon, the Yukon. You don't have to use all of them, you just need to bring some in. And then for each factor, I'd plot it on here. So that's your assessment. And then obviously write me a conclusion that brings together your thought process. So I hope that helps. Once you've written it, if you could submit it onto my homework for me, please, so that I can mark it.